Greetings, my fellow Starseeds. I have a very special guest here. His name is Tim Tactics. That's correct. And I found this guy through, again, big ups to Ishmael Perez, through an intuitive insight that a link was established. And a person said, you two have to talk. And you're both German, so there's a root connection there. And when I do videos, I'm like an ant tree. Take a very long time unless it makes sense to bring it up. And I like people that where I'm getting the authentic root. So from the resonance, why would you be coming from Germany like me, having these fantastic phenomenon? And I want the people to have an open mind and receive now. How did this, how Germany is traditionally based, 3D. It's not like that every city has a crystal shop, it. We don't have like a natural grocers or Trader Joe's with health food. It's not really like so common, not even this day when I was in Frankfurt in May. It's still very structured, and they're having to learn the spiritual input. So how did you realize there's something else going on than the life that you're living in Germany? How did it begin to unveil how you realized, okay, I have some skills, there's things I have to put in order. Who am I? Where am I coming from? Maybe you know your extraterrestrial origin. I know mine. I'm Arcturian. And don't hold back. My people are open for galactic information, Galactic Federation, as complex as it gets, from super soldier to whatnot. Begin somehow. How would you begin?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, and I'm super glad to be here, because in the very moment when you sent me a message, I felt like there's a strong connection. I like that very much, and also happy to have you on the Shifter podcast very soon. So that being said, and first of all, I gotta at least say that since I'm now I moved away from Germany after coming forward and so on. I think Germany has really one of the best organic foods in the world. I really gotta say that compared to all other countries. I was actually saying that this morning, and I very much believe that because a lot of the stuff is rooted in this Rudolf Steiner tradition. So they do a lot of that. So at least that I gotta defend Germany a little bit about that. So my story is I'm having my background is quite different in that way. I'm coming from a very conservative background, and went to law school, studying governance, was working in the governance scene in Germany for almost 10 years. At first I didn't have anything to do with ETs, spirituality, and so on and so on. I'm more of I worked for these advanced groups. So at one point I started in conventional governance. So working on conventional programs about public diplomacy and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, some of these documents found their way onto my desk, and they were talking about non-terrestrial influences on the planet. At first, it was because we were doing this historical approach, looking into how people were actually controlled in the mid-ages. That was the very, very first. I was 18. That was the very first program that I was working on, which is a weird subject to begin with, I guess, right? Who wants to know that? Who wants to know, and why would someone pay a lot of money to these institutions to figure out what techniques were used in order to control people in the mid-ages? And then I received more and more documents coming from, the Vatican and so on, and they were direct sources speaking about extraterrestrials on this planet. Specifically, it was a document, was the first thing that happened, speaking about the city of Athens where a citizen of Athens were clearly in talking about reptile presence in their city, building the Acropolis and inhabiting it too. So that was kind of interesting, I guess. And I didn't think much about that. And from that point on, things really got deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. And I was signed for different other governance programs until we really had programs where we made direct contact, where we were analyzing some of the stuff that is happening, and all of that took place. So it's I'm coming from a more conservative side, and then made my way into like the spiritual thing. And at one point, I also figured that we need to change things on the planet, because ultimately this is used to be a lose-lose situation on the planet. Lot of extraterrestrial influences changed malevolently what's going on here, and that was the point where it was like going to the people there in that group that I was working on, and said like, hey, we should do something about that. And they were saying, no, we don't have resources, and that's not our focus. We don't do that. So I kept silent for like 15 years. And in 2019, the Pentagon and all these other authorities, self-proclaimed authorities, I'm just joking, but all these officers were saying like, hey, we need to pave the way for people to come forward and speak about their experiences in these advanced programs. And as you've seen, there's been like lots of whistleblowers sharing their messages. And that was the moment where I realized, because I received that message too, and people were like, hey, Tim, I think it's time for you. So that is the moment. Since then, I'm talking about ETs.
So how was the first, share a little bit of paranormal encounters, visions, memories, I don't know, super soldier, whatever you experienced, witnessing stuff being taken somewhere. Like, when did it begin? And
well, that's a fascinating question. I guess like in my vita or my life, it probably began like as a baby, as a child already, which I only figured out like very recently, because I was talking to Sid Goldberg, who's he's great. He's a producer too, and we were talking about some of the stuff, and he was saying like, hey, did your mom ever notice anything around you? Was there anything like that? And I texted her in that interview, and she said like, yeah, there was like, weird beings, little gray people in the garden, or like you were talking as a baby, you were talking to beings, or as a child, like 2 years old or so. I told my parents like that I've been visited in my bedroom. I didn't remember that at that moment, but apparently my mom did, and she was more and more realizing that there's something about that. But these were like the very early things that happened to me. And as I said, like at 18, I got recruited from the university. And this recruitment process for non-disclosure or advanced programs, as you might know, that's not like a regular recruitment. Like, you don't apply for that. You don't send your vita or your application somewhere. It's more that you are being tested without your knowledge. And at one point you find yourself in such a weird situation that people are offering you something where you basically say, yeah, let's do that. So that happened, and it happens gradually until it was so far down the rabbit hole that I realized, okay, there are groups on this planet that know that there are ETs on this planet.
so have your old friends ever thought like, okay, now he's going bonkers? Like, he's like, I have my experience, but we have all different experience. I'm 55, so I grew growing up in the 70s. For me, like, I was hiding my stuff. I didn't tell my mom. I was like, this is crazy. Not only gray, it's like my room was packed. Like every night, going to bed, tons of beings, not just grays, from elementals to elven gnomes, whatever beings. I don't even know how to describe. And I hid it. So it's very interesting to hear that your mom remembers, that there's more of an openness. But did you have friends that were like, okay, dude, I don't know, what are you smoking? What is this now?
No, actually, never. I've never had the experience that people were saying like, what is that? I think that everything that I've explained to people, it's more like the other way around. That when people listen to things that I say, that they say like, oh my goodness, there's something that I've also experienced. That I try to put the veil above it and not think about that. So that is something that happens a lot. When I meet people that there's something happening within them, where people just say like they had paranormal and weird experiences too. And I think my background, because I went to law school, governance, studying and working for these programs. I came from a different background actually. So I'm not. I didn't. Go through the typical ayahuasca session or something where someone comes out and says like, I just talked to God, which is a legit experience. These people experience something, and you and I, we know that a lot of these downloads come through meditation. They come through certain like certain substances too.
Yeah.
However, for me, it was like more like being part of like this setup of governance work, where I went from conversational governance into exopolitics, and again, I wasn't able to tell anyone ever what I did and what I was working on for 15 years. Not even my parents, not a single friend ever I've told what I did. Of course, I sparkle, throw in some stuff sometimes like, hey, there are ETs or something like that. And my parents, to be very honest, my parents have experienced me more than once, like, sitting in the basement and crying, and also talking about like, the situation with smartphones and how people, listen and to what people say on the smart. Snowden came forward in 2011, I think. I was sitting there in the basement, I'm telling my parents like, hey, I actually want to tell you something about my life, but I just also can't. And also, I don't want you to have phones around. And they were like, why? And I was like, because they're listening. And they were like, who and what? And I was like, okay. So until 2000,
like my phone is rigged with like countermeasures.
That's amazing. And you do these things yourself, right?
Yes. So that's why it goes hand in hand with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when I do certain things, I'm going into the canyons of Sedona and I leave the phone, for that matter.
Yeah.
I don't take my phone with me.
Well, you might know that, if you go up the ladder with certain institutions, they don't care if you don't have your phone around. They still can listen to you. Even if today we have technology, even in the 50s, hopefully I'm not breaking any secrets here, but even in the 50s, there were like satellites. You could zoom. I talked to military people and so on. You can zoom into a license plate. You can read the newspaper from one of these satellites in the 1950s, and now compare, like 80 years later, what's available in the market. So even if you're like in your basement, 10 feet, 20 feet, or even more underground, no phone around, nothing, it's still available. It's still possible and feasible to actually listen to what you're saying. So
yeah. So one trick I have, I might suggest, is I learned that in Mount Shasta with certain downloads, there are areas where the technology can't reach dimensionally. It's impossible to track you. It's where you lose contextual imaging and whatever technology that's based on this three-dimensional realm. Holographically, they lose contact. Hence, also the canyons of Sedona, where satellite and the ping frequency, the cross-reference doesn't work. See, 5G up here in the mountains doesn't work. It's not computing. Even with the high tech and zooming in, if you're in a cave somewhere in the canyon surrounded by magnetite rocks, it's going to be very difficult for some terrestrial forces that are very developed, mind you, to track you. So that's an experience that I had.
That's interesting. I mean, the thing about that is the universe is open source. That's the reality of the universe, and that is something that helped me a lot by integrating that. So if you want to get your hands on information, we are information. The universe, we are connected to the quantum world, which consists only of information at all. So and I think that is something that changes the way these covert programs will work and are working, because ultimately you can't just hide information from people who are looking for information, because it's an open source. You're going to be connected to it.
Yeah, and even if you hide information, there's a pattern. And if you know about pattern recognition, and I learned that in like the Tao, even when you do not communicate, you're communicating that. So there's no hiding from whatever is to be done in this realm. And then it gets complex. I don't know if you have stories there. You can make things not happen by quantum reality programming as you're projecting what you're perceiving, as in the observer effect. I've seen stuff happening where something happened to a person and somehow that was unthought, and people that were involved in that, nobody had memory about that ever happening. So it's going to get real crazy in the next couple of years, where you don't even know what's what anymore, because we're beginning to control these parameters, not accepting the baseline of the program that's running this year. You know about that.
The big question is, because there are groups on this planet who already have this knowledge. The US side, and I talked to some US soldiers and people, from CIA, DIA, and so on. They call that a breakaway societal part, and I think that makes a lot of sense, especially in the US, because when you think about what happened there, it's like 1947 was the big crash in Roswell, or Corona, and actually it's Corona, New Mexico, which belongs to the district of Roswell, and that was where the first the US Army was like picking up a crashed UFO. It was also 1 month later, the CIA was founded. Why was the CIA founded? Because the US was in 1947 suddenly confronted with the reality of another species. And then they were like, oh my goodness, we need an agency that takes care of that. So the CIA was founded. But as you can think, like these agencies suddenly saw like a big potential in this technology. So they drifted away. And we do have like, I think it was Eisenhower, who was saying like, hey, I've got to warn you, there's like people with their own military, with their own intelligence, and they do not belong to the oversight of the Pentagon or anything, and that's just the truth. So we do have groups on this planet who very, very much know and do have the technology that is absolutely science fiction for billions of people around the planet who might think this is still Star Trek or something.
Yeah, I mean, it goes so far out. Like one side note to the CIA, I learned through my upbringing in Germany that the Secret Service as an SS is a copy from Hitler's Sicherheitsstaffel.
Yeah,
that's where Secret Service actually comes from, because they copied that system as a governmental secret military police that they needed.
And I gotta say this, and I think that the colleagues in the US are very aware of that. The United States in 1945 has done a mistake or something, which is they integrated a lot of the Nazi technology, Nazi knowledge, and some of the practices, and brought them into the US. We do know Operation Paperclip. We do know that the whole NASA thing, going to the moon and so on. The NASA rocket, the Apollo rocket, is completely rooted in the studies of the V2 rocket that the Nazis have shot, into England. And all of that stuff, and also something that people might not know, which is basically more like the governance sector. This is like basically rooted in the beliefs of Freudian philosophies and psychology, which means there you might not even have, people might not know the implications of that. But for example, the reason why Americans are eating bacon, the reason for that is governance, because someone has said like, hey, we need to make Americans think bacon, which is a super cheap trash meat, would be very American. So they created the all-American breakfast. Up until now, the president is inviting people to eat bacon with him, which is all part of this governance program, which comes from, the other Germans from the 1940s who basically started this mind control thing. So MK Ultra, all these kind of stuff. That's all, that's
all Germany based. Operation Die Glocke. Which nobody in America can pronounce. The Glocke.
The Glock. Don't they have like a pistol that has the same name? But also the nuclear weapons, for example. I was talking to some U.S. soldiers, Navy pilots, quite old, but they had the knowledge. One of them, David Adair, for example, he was working together with Werner von Braun. Mm-hmm. I met him in Gaia, and he said, for example, they know about the Glocke. Werner von Braun has mentioned it multiple times to him. Mm-hmm. They knew that the nuclear bomb that the US was throwing into Japan, that was a German invention.
Oppenheimer. Yeah, Oppenheimer.
Yeah. I mean, he was American, but like lots and lots of the technology, the V2 rocket later on, which was sent to the moon, which should actually carry these nuclear bombs. That was the Wunderwaffe, the wonder weapon that Hitler was always proclaiming. So
and wasn't the spooky thing is that Oppenheimer quoted some of the Vedic texts saying, "Now I am the bringer of death, destroyer of worlds."
Yeah, that's true.
In a Hindu text, that's pretty crazy. Like that, this guy quotes that.
Yeah, I think that is based upon, because in the very moment when he saw this, nuclear mushroom thing, I think that is the moment when a scientist really gets ultimately into his own reflection on responsibility.
Yeah.
Because that's a crazy weapon, a nuclear bomb, and that is not only where it stops. So ultimately we are now in a moment where we realize we got to put in good intentions into what we do, and that is also why I love what you are actually building your lab, if I can call it that way.
Yeah. Based on natural energy, not destructive.
Right.
Not nothing collide like the Hadron Collider. I'm not smashing anything.
Yeah,
not destroying anything. And side note, I want to see what your take is. I learned that the word atom, as in also Latin or atomos, means which cannot be divided.
Right.
So there's a rule in that word before that says that there's certain items in the universe we shall not split them, as in destroy them, because we're creating basically a necroverse. We're denting dimensional layers, and that these physicists that work in the atomic power do not get that is really very baffling.
A fascinating background story to what you just said, because they're absolutely true. So the word atom means undivided, which is the Greek concept of like there must be something in the universe, source, which can't be divided, which is true. The universe word itself says it. We are all part of the one creator. Something that we figured out in one of these, and again, like lots of these advanced programs, they were looking into what are these other dimensions, what are these other frequencies, what are these other life forms, and how can we profit? What is their approach? What is their agenda, and so on? So what they figured out is that there is a certain species which they called the Per'a, and that word later on also was found in the word pharaoh. So which is really interesting. The take, however, is that Per'a actually, because today in Egyptology, historians and so on, they translate pharaoh as the emperor. But the truth is, this species said Ter'a because Ter'a means the great beyond. The literal translation of that is that there is a world, a home, a kingdom behind this, what we call 3D. There is a home where we all come from. And that is super interesting to me, because they were trying to give this knowledge back to the people. Interesting beings, sandy color, almost like a weird shaped face in that skull too. So, but what they are contributing to the world is there we are not only these 3D beings, there is something Ter'a, there's something beyond. And Sid Goldberg, when I told him the story, was like, he spent times in the Himalayan mountains as a monk, basically. And he said, there's this word para in Sanskrit, which means the same thing. It means para Brahma. It means there is a world behind the world that we are experiencing. And these beings were bringing that knowledge back to Earth, and they were heavily targeted. But they brought the word. Some of the words that they brought down was, for example, they brought the philosophy of Atman, which in the German, you might know the German word Atem, which means breath.
Atem.
Breath of life, right? So they are saying there is Atman, there is breath of life, atom, all of this indicates that there is a life form in all of us, which is the foundation of life. And that is where Athens got its name from. All of that is the history and has been terribly modified over thousands of years.
Oh, I mean, stuff that I've seen in visions, where I can't even begin to explain how we had colonized other planets, how we migrated from planets. We fell from planets where, like Mars, like we left stuff desolate. Not saying that we are the cause, but there were rivaling factories and ETs that Earth is, you can say, the pop chart, the Anunnakis. That's all nice. There was stuff before the Anunnakis. I spoke to Sasha Lessin, who spoke about Anunnaki fake gods, and he said there were, you can say, refugees from the Pleiadian system that were Lyrans before they became Pleiadian, and they fled from what we in the Star Wars, it's called the Empire, and they landed on Earth. So there was another story here 1 million years ago. So you have to really dig to get into. There's way more going on than just the Anunnakis and the Enlil and Enki story. It goes way further back than that,
Yeah.
From the fall and when we lost consciousness. And unfortunately, I don't hear about her anymore. What's her name? Ashaya Nadine. She talked about way in the beginning. I don't know if you ever heard of her. That Earth was 500 million years ago on a 12 octave, and we were the original. We're original. These beyond beings, like this, they call the original Trinity, paradise, sons and daughters of the One, with superpowers, creating worlds, and then we fell 12 octaves within, so without DNA switch off. She showed how the crucifixion, the meridians, the nails are directly in the meridians that manifest, and not only that, the crown also lock the crown chakra down. And then you see the symbolism, like you see with the bacon. Everybody, even people that say I don't believe in Jesus or Jesus, as in Hail Zeus, you have to really think how deep this goes. They know the fiery crown around the heart, the lock. This is all holographic symbolism of locking down mechanisms that once you no longer accept that imagery, really in your cellular matrix, there's some other stuff happening to you where you're freeing yourself from that, So that's also a symbology thousands of years old, and it goes so far back, and it was done over and over to us,
It is, and we found more and more truth that evolution in the way that it's been portrayed is just not 100% correct. There's far more intermingling and far more mixture and experimentation and so on going on in the universe than the traditional evolutionary theory might convey. So Definitely, I've seen a document, and in these programs, you never 100% know when you see some of these documents in these programs. Is that something that you are meant to see, or is that
Mm,
something that is like 100% true? But so I'm always telling everyone if that was like experience that I personally had or something that I've seen in the document. But one document stated, and it's interesting that you say that humans de-evolved,
yeah.
because this document stated that humans do not come from this planet. They do come from another world. The document said that these original humans come from an aquatic planet. They considered themselves as part of the source of the divine. They were very, very, very strong about thinking that they are have like a very superior and great genetic material. And they were confronted on their planet, their original planet. These humans were confronted with, because they had underwater cities, according to this document, they were confronted with a lot of turmoil and catastrophes and so on, and went on their little ships, went off and founded new colonies. And one of the colonies is this one. This is not originally a human planet. This used to be an ant planet. Ants outweighed humans by 127 million to 1. That is how many ants are on this planet. And then it was a reptile planet for quite some time because, dinosaurs and so on. And then humans, had their colony here. And so people should really realize that it's not like a random fact that, somehow from like a bacteria, humans evolved and came out of the water or anything. Nah, the universe is so multi-layered. It's very complex in that way.
Well, the architectural design is divine, and I knew this before. Billy Carson stated it. Is you have to really think. Human DNA is roughly 9 point something billion years old. Human DNA, not amoeba, and the Earth is younger. That means the creational construct of the human vessel was older than this planet. So it is impossible for this species to come from this planet. It's not even genetically possible. And science has found out, we're like 9 billion. Can you believe it? 9 point something. I don't know the digits behind the decimal point. It's how old the human genome is. And that's like twice the age of this planet.
Yeah. And also the human genome is it's very flexible, which means you can modify DNA. DNA is very reactive to certain manipulations, and even to which is very important to note. It's very reactive to your psyche and very reactive to your thoughts too. So all the manipulation genetically aside and so on, the key to conquering our own DNA and genetics is within ourselves, in our psychic.
Yeah, it's the particle accelerator that actually makes real is that you have on a cellular level to understand that you can actually change that. That you develop. There's a book, Alice Bailey, Consciousness of the Atom. They really go down to the consciousness of an atom, because an atom knows what to do. Like a seed, when the Jesus story with a mustard seed. It has its program. It knows what to do. And we are these seeds or star seeds. Like once we have seed consciousness of what are we here to do by divine right, because there's a difference between free will and divine will. Free will is this, I can do what I want to do no matter the consequence. And divine will is like, what is the input intuitively without the external influence? What am I supposed to do? What am I here for? When that gets corrected, things elevate in a very miraculous way. As you can see now, what's your take on social media and AI? We're like an information Armageddon. So how does even a young person pick what's right? How do you develop your intuition when you're being bombarded with what you're supposed to wear, what you're supposed to eat? This is the trend. Where you're supposed to go, what job, like how you got your job. Like I became a TV VCR technician because what do you do to make money? You follow your passion. Nobody finances your passion. Nobody finances you finding yourself spiritually. So, okay, I got to survive. So what's the closest thing? So you do what you are told. But when you awaken, You do what must be done. And then finance is survival. So how do you see all of this information Armageddon in this day and age to wake up out of this into your intuition? Let me do what I'm here to do, actually. How you found your way.
And then things fall into place, which is very miraculous. That's something that you can't explain. And you were mentioning the Vedas. It's actually something that is very clearly described there. So whenever someone is on their mission and doing what you said, divine will wants, if you commit yourself to that, things really fall into place, even in the craziest ways possible. It's really fascinating, and you can't explain that. It's just the living universe that's helping and supporting ourselves.
So I still sometimes even have this with my mother, that I try to explain to her that you're creating at all times. There's not a second, not a nanosecond where you're not creating. But since the feedback loop is somewhat delayed or we're so conditioned, we don't realize that. But I'm still trying to reach people, telling them, like, no matter what comes into your life that is a reflection of your subconscious conditioning or reconditioning, whatever, however you work it. And there's little micro fragments that were not transliterated in the Bible, where it makes sense when it says that when you follow basically your oversoul, not in the God, like, don't worship something outside of yourself. First off, be careful with calling forces outside of yourself and source. Go back to source. And I realized when as the Bible says, when you follow God's will, which is not as the Bible portrays it 100%, there's more divine galactic thing going on. He will take care of you. That is when you step into that divine purpose, then green pastures, and you'll be taken care of. You'll be in the green shire and all of this. Then it really becomes real. And for that, you don't need religion. You don't need to realign or rely on a jinn to believe in something that is promised in the afterlife, because you're here, you're right now, you're in the presence. And you understand, out of all people, I'm preaching to the choir, you get what I'm saying.
I also felt like the rhythm in your words, which I very, very much appreciate. I think that's very strong too. Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure, let's put it that way, to go to India. They have this UNESCO thing going on in India and so on. And the stories are pretty clear. So the Indian mythology is describing that in the very moment when you concentrate on Vishnu, which is the balancing energy of the world, then Lakshmi gets called in. So everyone who's calling in Lakshmi, which is basically the word luxury, is coming from that Indian Sanskrit term. So in the very moment when you call for her, she's very unlikely to appear. But in the very moment when you really do what the divine purpose is, the divine flow, in that very moment, you create Lakshmi, you create this beauty for yourself. And for the world and for everyone, that is the true beauty of abundance, and I think that is very, very much reflected in what you just referred to as in the Vedas.
That interestingly is because I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's very inspiring what you're saying, because I also learned that in the Hindu religion, or Hindi, or however it's described, I hope I got this right, when you create friendships, you create entities that govern those friendships. And when people work in, let's say, how do I manifest, Bob Proctor, and how do I make money and all of this, when you do it in a divine path, there are gods in the old scriptures that are dispensation angels, that when you do it by divine right, like from a right and just mind, the dispensation angels have abundance coming to you. Like, they open gates that what you need will be provided. But the test is for you to really embody that, not just theoretically believe in a potential construct, really make it real in the physical.
Yeah, I gotta say, I believe very, very much from the bottom of my heart that friendship is one of the biggest factors in the universe. I think friendship, I really, really, really really believe in that friendship is one of the true aspects of love, true love. As humans always refer to love, they say like, oh, I love this coffee, or I love that car, or sometimes even arguments like, oh, I went there, oh, I love this. But there's something, a concept of true love. And true love, that means you bring yourself in such a vibrational connection to the universe, where your life and life per se actually becomes consistent and makes sense. And that can be, and the Greeks had beautiful concepts about that, right? But that can be parental love. You can really love the universe because you have a parental connection to a kid, or even to your inner child, which can be true, right? It can be physical love, it can be love for service. But I do believe that, and I've seen that so many times, friendship in the universe must be one of these true and authentic types of love too. And we can make friends with everything, and not only like interpersonal, but you can make friends with your environment. You can make friends with each and every atom in the world, and that's gonna elevate your life in such a beautiful way. Very much.
Well, I give you a magical story. Like I told you, like once we keep in contact, I will send you a few gadgets. So I was sitting at home thinking, I need to upgrade. I had a Ford SUV Explorer. I said, I want to upgrade a little bit. I need a new car. And then my girlfriend's father calls me and says, yeah, I have a BMW X5 and I don't want to sell it. I'm impatient. Fix the brakes. It's yours. Gifted. Shipped from New York, which is $1,000. Also, I don't have to pay for anything.
Wow.
And the car had little hiccups here and there. So I have also devices. I made a conscious connection with that car. I thanked for the spirit for giving it. All the hiccups ceased. I fixed
come on, that's cool.
I fixed the brakes, and people are like, oh, BMW X5, the upkeep, nothing but drama. I'm like, no drama with this car. Now check this out. Here's my super miracle. I built one of my photon devices, which kind of like looks like this. Amazing. And attached it to the fuel line, and photonically talking to the hydrolysis as in the liquid flow structure in the motor. I turned that car from an 18 mile per gallon into a 24.5 miles per gallon car. Wow. I increased the tank range from 400 miles average factory setting to 600 miles. So it's serving me, it's consuming less, and I really enjoy this car.
I love that. Yeah,
I really enjoy with it, conscious connected.
Yeah, and you can do that with everything, right? That is and I think we got to be honest here. The planet itself is going through the biggest consciousness shift in the last 15,000 years at least.
Yes.
We see that every day. We reach all these new people. We reach more and more people. We can share this wisdom. We can tell our stories. Right now, we're preparing one of the biggest spiritual conferences in Germany at the Externsteine, which was Extern Stones. That's like one of the forgotten places because history.
I remember that.
You do.
The old, you can say tribal German,
exactly,
original ancestors.
At least 15,000 years of spiritual action there, yeah, and it's directly connected to the sun. And the sun, as you might know, the consciousness we have comes directly out of the sun and is transported into us. So we are more connected with the sun than we are, the role that we are playing on this which your name comes from right, the Egyptian idea of so this is super fascinating to me, and it feels like this planet is like shifting into this new version of herself. And
what fascinates me is that you get the concept. It's not so, when you explain it, it's not so complex. I used to read William Bramley when nobody was into that topic, like, ancient warfare, ancient manipulation, like you said,
Yeah.
And why is this book coming to me? No idea. So I read it and I'm like, oh my God, the cholera, the pest by certain city districts were wiped out and the others weren't, like strategically planned and mapped out stuff, and people showing up in masks and they didn't get sick. measuring the place, disappearing, and strange crafts in the sky. I'm like, wow, there's so much more going on. And then I was like, isn't life fantastic if you really, really dare to look for more information? Like, ask and it shall be given. So how you see it, it's like enlightening, and it's and enlightening, I think, takes place every moment. It's every micro fragment is an enlightenment, and you're getting the picture. Like as in Ra, I call myself that because, and interesting you mentioned that, and the connection to the story. I was of the Ra priesthood, and Matthias Estefano mentioned that priesthood was here. So I was Arcturian, blue skin, elongated head, teaching the knowledge how to steward planets and raise consciousness. And at some point, we were demonized for our looks. We were attacked, and at some point, extraterrestrials, you couldn't run around in original form on Earth anymore. Mind you have to go back 500 to a million years to understand or understand the concept. So I was one of the priesthoods of the Ra, meaning like I'm not the Ra. I'm embodying the energy as an understanding the truest form as enlightenment, the light from the sun, to embody that to the full capacity of your being, whatever planetary system or M-class planet you're in, to bring that light in and raise consciousness with as much as you can bring in. It's like a surname. So you are off the Ra. So I joke about it. I tell people, if you have Gmail, that doesn't make you Google, but you're part of that collective, So you get it. It makes sense. But you're part of a collective that is collecting information, and you subscribing to Gmail. So I subscribed to Ra as in Arcturian origin, representing the light of Arcturus, increasing, amplifying, and refining the light of consciousness on a planet when a planet is in the ascension process. So people, and I'm assuming, I'm getting the sense you are a soul that doesn't incarnate all the time. You come when it's pivotal, because that's interesting for your soul.
Yeah, I subscribe to Tim. And I think everyone listening here should do that too, by the way. But I think that's very relevant what you said, because ultimately, yes, we are part of this divine consciousness, and we can choose to go and become parts of influences, right? And we should really choose that very carefully. I think like billions, I'm very careful, but I think billions of people on this planet have no idea what they choose on a day-to-day basis, right? And other people are influencing them to choose, whatever they want. And now I think we are on this verge in this moment where people realize that we are sets of data. We can inherit certain flows of energy. It is, again, we go back to India. I love that we can have this conversation about the Vedas too, which I think they have really a lot of the remaining knowledge and wisdom that has not been suppressed, like most of the other stuff. But they are saying you can inhabit these energies. For example, Ganesha, right? It stands for the friendship, the enjoyment of life, gamifying. The word game comes from Gam Ganesha, which is the way that you invocalize that. So directly, the word game comes from that. So when you think about the universe as a game, when you think about playing, when you think about enjoying life, then you inhabit these energies, and that will extremely change not only yourself but your environment, your reality, your whole universal experience. And that is super important for people to realize that.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, give me a magical example where you had an idea or a focus and not a direct influence, but you carried it in your mind, and then something in your life happened, accelerated to you didn't expect. You have any example?
So many, so many. I mean, this is
Pick
like
one.
I give you just one because it just appears in my mind, and it's just freaking beautiful. But I've seen these things happen all over again so many times. But at one time I was, coming back from India, I was, learning some of the stuff. I personally, I very much also resonate not only with the friendship aspect and the joy aspect, which is this all shift happening now thought, what we bring into the world, but I also resonate very much with the creative, probably just as much as you, with the creative aspect of the world, right? We are here because we can experience creativity. We can build something, we can paint something, we can express through music, through rap music, any type of music. So I was very much praying to Saraswati, which is the embodiment of this this creative flow of the universe, which I very, very much love. And I was sitting there, and out of nowhere, and she is very much associated with the white swan. And I was sitting in the German forest, and when I opened my eyes, right in front of me, almost on my laps, a white swan looking directly into my face. And I was like, this is amazing. Because I was like praying to this aspect of the universe, and all of that happened. And this is just one. I could probably, we all have these billions of times in our lives all over, and that just shows how much you can inherit these energies, and also how the universe is reacting and giving back in these moments, right? The Germanic tribes, I mean, we both come from Germany. The Germanic tribes had this strong connection to these other beings and these other dimensions. That's the reason why all these Germans put their Gartenzwerge, their little garden.
The
Right?
garden gnomes, that is the big trend for all the way to like East Germany. That's a big thing, and even in Austria, the garden gnomes were called die Putz, and the word putzen, as in cleaning, comes from the Putz. The Putz were the little elementals that kept the house clean. So hence the word putzen.
Putzen. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh my goodness! I hope we have some Germans here that listen.
I understand that. So that's from those little people, tiny people called die Putz.
Amazing! Yeah.
And they would come and regulate. They put your shoes in order. My grandma used to tell me tales of ancient stories of legends of little people. One was about a giant, and maybe you heard of that name, Rübezahl.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to call him, and when he came, the ground shook, and he was as tall as a tree. And then he was, asking me, "Warum rufst du mich?" He would with thundering voice, "Why you are calling for me?
Yeah,
you better be clear before you make your wishes, because I don't come for everybody."
Yeah,
for sure. In danger,
That's interesting. Yeah, I love that.
In the word wish, Wichtel.
Wichtel, yes.
Wichtel is wish, and wish is actually the attention to what you want to attract in your life. And the Wichtelmenschen are the ones that appear, when you hear the stories, and they say, Wichtelmenschen, das bin ich, der sich nur Sonntagskindern zeigt. In ancient, you understand, because you have the resonance. So what I just said is, like, he would say that the clean and those who are born on a Sunday, those who are full of grace, I will appear in front of you, because you
probably have a lot of people who now like have question marks above their head, like what are they talking about?
Yeah. And that's I guess that's why.
Yeah,
from my Germanic side and my German grandma's side, I have a lot of connection to gnomes and elves naturally. And you could have told me that 30 years ago, it would have been like, never in my life. There's nothing going on. And I physically saw them in physical form. That gave me also an idea that Walt Disney must have seen something the way he painted Fantasia. Because he has magic mushrooms dancing over the lake and little elves and minotaurs and centaurs. I'm like, that dude has looked into that realm, because you're not creating that out of nowhere.
100%.
There is a realm. These existences are real, and I've seen it.
Disney. I mean, I love Disney. I definitely love his energy and what he did on this planet. He was a Freemason too, so he knew the stuff. There's in Disney land, there's a clubhouse only for Freemasons, and also he built the whole parks onto these ley lines. So in the very moment when these ley lines are crossing, he wanted to have a roundabout at that place. So when you go to Disneyland and Disney World too, you're gonna see the big Disney roundabout thingy, like the
Mhm.
come on, what's that thing called? Is that, it's not a roundabout, it's a carousel. What's
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. It's a roundabout. Carousel is a roundabout.
No, I think a roundabout is when you go on a street, and right, isn't that
But
Kreisverkehr?
it's, I mean, I
It's a
mean,
carousel. It's a carousel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Americans understand carousel.
yeah, right.
They
Okay.
know, they know. Yeah, and side note, some people like, oh, Disney. I know there's a lot of attachments with subgroups that were dark that try to taint Disney, but
Yeah,
Disney in itself, I don't think came with what people attach to this stuff. I
yeah,
also think that that's operation from the other side to really dismantle fantasies and dismantle creative people. So as they tried to crucify him, the same thing with crucifying Jesus. You have a Messiah, all of a sudden the world opens, he shows you magic, you crucify him. So not all what they say about Disney, I believe, as in deep state, is true. I think it's fabricated. There's no stuff to it. But I believe amongst the company, within the company, there was abuse. Make no mistake, for people that were not, they would try to hide under that mantle.
yeah,
I believe that. But for me, it was magic growing up.
yeah.
Watching movies like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Mary Poppins, Magical
Oh, a
Realms.
merry-go-round. Yeah, for sure. Now that you
Yeah.
say Mary Poppins, it's a merry-go-round. The carousel, they called it a merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round. See?
Yeah. Now that
See, I
you
didn't
say
even
Mary
know.
Poppins, right?
Yeah. Okay. Merry-go-round. Yeah, see, I didn't even see that. Yeah. Makes
This
sense.
thing,
Makes
the
sense.
merry-go-round, is like put onto the cross section of these two ley lines in Disney World, in Disneyland too, and it's basically meant in order to circulate the energies around the park, which is ingenious. That's how energies work, right?
Yeah, so creating a vortex, to inspire the magic. To me, it inspired always magical things. Disney as a child, like didn't have preconceived notion of what deep state is or whatever. As a child, I don't feel manipulated. I know there's some people that might be whatever they call deep state. I don't know, like Britney Spears, Mickey Mouse Club. I think these were kids that were entertainment programmed, and it's sad that happened. Many entertainment was just for entertainment purposes and wherever that goes. But I wasn't so much into the club thing. I was more into what magic does Walt Disney present in movies and worlds, and the creative aspect. That was my focus, where they created three-dimensional worlds. We have no computers. He had dudes painting on glass panels for Bambi to move the forest in a parallax that the camera would look real, but these were glass plates, and I saw this whole, I don't know what word would you use, menagerie of glass plates interwoven to mimic a three-dimensional forest. And I find that ingenious. When we have no idea, how do we do this? How do we make the viewers believe you're really there? And it's the same thing goes for Star Trek. Patrick Stewart says that, we have to make them believe we are a delegation in outer space, and this has to be real. This has to be created so it is believable. That's
and
what
they did a good job.
Oh, I loved it. I ate Star Trek up from Kirk to Picard to Janeway, and
that's cool. I love the new generation. I love that too. I love the design too. If you think about how iconic that design was, because we're talking about a series, and probably the Star Trek nerds out there know the exact date, but this goes back like 20 years or more. I don't know, but
more about 50,
probably,
60 years.
I mean, like the new generation of Star Trek. And if
the new generation goes back 30 years. But imagine in 67, the first show, when he didn't have the original Captain Kirk, it was about Kalos and Telosians living in an inner Earth, being able to project images into your mind so you would see something else. That's a show in black and white with movie props and plastic stuff to make believe. That's channeled.
They talk about inner Earth. So we gotta be clear about this. We have two different things that we have to talk about. We have people that channel correct information and
Yes.
put them into movies. And I
Yes.
believe that is something that happens with the Simpsons and so on whenever they predict
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then we have real so-called advanced companies on this planet. There is a selection of companies on this planet, just as much as there are advanced groups, and they know what's up. They know what's happening. They even have psychic departments. That's no joke. They do have these psychic departments. All the the bigger countries on this planet, they have their psychics too. China, USA even has like official programs that are released to the public, right? Over the
It goes even more high tech if you read Blavatsky material, 1835, when she channeled like these galactic masters. They are chosen ones that ETs will pick to channel storylines that they think that they're creating, like Philip K. Dick. They think that the authors and they're writing this, but you are actually transcribing what's being channeled to you to help the human race to awaken that there's a greater story than the story that they had been told. So it's disguised as art or a sci-fi, but it's very specific. Like Philip K. Dick, oh my, you read this stuff, it's so precise and so descriptive. With Gene Roddenberry, when he said on a ship there's a deflector shield, there's a reflector shield. This was very specific. This is not some fantasy movie. When the bad aliens come and they eat everybody, it's crap. That's garbage. But when it goes about precise consciousness and development, Galactic Federation, no more wars.
Yeah.
We have different currency that we exchanged amongst one another because we don't have this competitive money and produce system anymore. One of the Star Trek movies, I think 10 years ago, starts with Class M, Planet Nibiru. And Kirk makes a mistake, which was the new Kirk. He shows the ship visible. And the primitives make this a cult. And the Federation is pissed that he broke the rule of non-interference. Hello. And the movie begins, the openings, this Class M, Planet Nibiru. I'm like, come on.
That's
just Hollywood playing around. This is precise information, precisely placed, and very smart.
It is, and it's fascinating because we do know that certain groups have certain people in certain advanced companies, and they utilize these companies and their reach in order to spread some of the information clearly. If you look into like a movie like Man in Black or something, absolutely clear. If you look into some of the Spielberg stuff and so on, and some of the Disney stuff, definitely also, the company knows a lot more than they might think. Do they also have like some of the greatest talents in art and music? Yes, definitely. And these people probably, definitely these artists are great people. They believe also in the strong, making this the happiest place on earth and so on and so on. They believe in that. They live for that. And that is what we pick up on when we watch some of these Disney movies. We pick up on the love that these artists are, sprinkling into these movies or infusing these movies. However, there are also moments where Disney is, transmuting or like communicating information that is meant in order to bring the society in a certain direction. That's pretty clear. If you look, for example, I watched, I don't know if you watched that movie, the Buzz Lightyear movie.
I know I have not watched that yet.
Oh my goodness!
Just for the information,
You have to watch that movie if you can watch it, because it's crazy. It is rooted in the universe of Toy Story. It's where this Buzz Lightyear toy figure is actually living his dream of going into space and so on. And it's crazy because they talk about propulsion systems based upon crystals. They talk about time dilation. They talk about time travel and interfrequential life forms. All of that. Where's that coming from? That is not channeled. These are real concepts. This is real. You know that.
It gets really sweet. You're like this one, the latest, not Star Trek Voyager. Was it Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah.
Where Michael Burns, the chick, becomes the captain. Well, you know that they have the only ship that shifted from a dilithium warp core, to a mycelium warp core. So it's a mushroom warp core because these mushroom spores have traversed the entire universe. They're using a mushroom core, and the guy has to literally trip for them to jump time and space for the ship to access it. So he plugs it in, he trips. They need a human as an interface. And before they had used the tardigrade, but it went sideways because the tardigrade didn't want to be captured. You know, these six-legged microorganisms that come from millions of light years away that we found? They put that in the movie. This is such a precise information. So now they can mess with the Klingons because they can jump through time and space because they have a mycelium network. Come on.
Yeah.
It's over. It's done. We're done, you know?
I love that. I met with Alex Gray, and he said to me, I think we're all mushrooms. And I love that quote because it's so true. I mean, if you look into what mushrooms can do in the way, you know, they have this fabulous experiment in Japan where they put a mushroom and a supercomputer against each other, and in order to find the most effective subway network for Tokyo.
Yeah. And he rewired and restructured it in a way more effective way.
Crazily
blew
good.
my mind.
Yeah. Because nowadays, and that is something that can't be mentioned enough, because that is something that humanity has to deal with in the new Earth reality that we're all going to approach, that is around us already. Plants can go in and out of time. They have done an experiment and looked into plants in order to figure out what they do, because plants always orientate themselves towards the sun. They know the best spot in order to grow perfectly. They orientate themselves towards the sun in order to get the energy going. So what they figured out is that the plant is just as much as a double slit experiment. It's going into a different dimension where all the options are available in the quantum universe, and it's calculating all these things in a timeless space, and then figures out which one is the right one and brings that back into the 3D plant world, and then grows and orientates himself towards the sun. That is how far plants can go. This is the new reality that we have to deal with. Life forms that go in and out of time in order to make decisions.
Yeah, and like you said, that's like also like being off the Ra. The orientation is the sun. That's the nucleus of knowledge. That's the central processing unit for life surrounding it. And that should be the orientation. And we have to take the distortions out of it. The raw material talks about it, that Earth, we have level of distortions that we're in. And the purer you make it, the more paradise it becomes. And not paradise as in paradiso, the Latin word for the land where the cattle is kept, because we used to be these slaves. Now more as in a fantasy world of make real the freedom and the liberal living of creation and exploration, refinement and expansion of consciousness, you know. And that's who we are, and that's what this life structure is about, you know. And that's what you're about. And I can see how passionate you are, but that's what those people are needed, you know. People like us, we're into it. This is not just some side hobby. We're into what we're doing. We're fascinated by what we're finding, and we're bringing it to the table for those who are not digging as much as we are digging, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm all about hands-on, doing the practical work. So are you with what you do, and I admire what you create. There, it's really, literally beautiful. I do believe that, because we are inside of this, weird 3D realm, and when you want to go from point A to point B, you need to put in a logic. That doesn't have to be a linear logic. You don't always have to walk the walk, but you have to find a certain logic that works for you, that brings you from wherever you are into wherever you want to go. And that is the reason why when the first episode on Gaia was released, I suggested that we can do, if people only take 3 minutes before going to bed and say 4 words, all shift happily now. that is a strong intention that you bring with your psyche into the reality realm. And if you do that multiple times over a year, that only takes 4 words, right? Before bedtime. When you do that, you shape your reality profoundly. And that's what we're doing. We're like, not even 600 days since we've done that. We've such a beautiful community of people around us, and I'm so grateful because we go back to Germany this October. We have a conference there, and we not only we do some of the spectacular contact work seances where we contact beings, where we have a fun spiritual comedy club and all of that, but we are also directly influencing the reality field as embodiments, detached from the role that we are playing as puzzle pieces of the divine being that is, the atom, the atnam, that being. And that being comes to Germany in October, and that being claims to shift happily. And that is something that I'm very, very passionate, very, very, curious about.
That makes total sense. In the Egyptian mythology, they also practice the moment of presence to bring in the magic, to observe what's now. That's why they also say, I am that I am. How many people say, I'm going to be a millionaire? You're already putting it into the aspect into a dream state, into a future, so you're not here. But when you say I am, you're embodying that. However that unfolds can be in millions. Abundance also means, like Bashar mentioned, having the ability to do when you need to do it.
Yeah.
So it's not always, abundance doesn't always mean having $50 million bank account. Abundance means what is the freedom that you have to do what you need to do. How does that come to you? So that makes a lot of sense. So we have the hour now. So do you want to switch? Because I keep the show like an hour.
Yeah, I love that.
So then I also have more for later. If I want to do more with you, then we can.
I love that. I love it.
Revisit. So we can switch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need probably like 3 minutes or so to get in the other studio and get the things, the lights switch on.
Yeah. So I keep this running here.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, we can do this. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna quit recording here.